when we had some short meeting beforehand, and actually you said it before as well. I'm not a techie. Everybody tends to say I'm not a techie. Well, I'm one of those that actually is. I have to admit, I'm one of those that very early on. Maybe I come from a family with 3 daughters. I'm the eldest daughter. My father's a technologist, so when we had any electrical equipment at home, those kind of things, who was the one installing that? Who was the one repairing it? I just loved it. So I am actually a little bit a nerd at heart.
Hi everybody. So my name is Casey. This is Jessica, my sister. So I'm not a techie, and I'm actually into technology by default. Just a bit of my story is about 12 years ago I was involved in a road accident that left me quadriplegic, that's paralyzed from my shoulders down. And at that point I was completely thinking my life was over, but during rehabilitation, the work that voice recognition software has done for me has been amazing. I founded an NGO called Chariots of Destiny, which advocates for road safety and empowers persons with disabilities. And about 2 years ago, I created the 50/50 Kenyan board game, all done by voice recognition software. So my involvement with technology is not on an engineering scale or years of engineering or technology, but personally, technology has played a big part in my life, and look forward to sharing to you. Thank you.
Please give a round of applause to my amazing panel. Thank you very much. Now, of course, if you've just joined us, what I was saying earlier is that it's highly, highly important for us to take this conversation in a very, very constructive direction. Here we're going to be, of course, talking about some of the guiding principles that we can start to apply when it comes to technology, and how these principles then can actually just better the lives of Kenyans, right? So we don't want to go too technical, because we want this to be highly interactive. Please feel free to ask any questions to the panel. Feel free to comment. Feel free to disagree, to agree to disagree even. But I think for us, it's to end up with a goal, and especially when it comes to bridging that gap, right? And then looking at the needs, and especially of young people, right? How do we then start to ensure that, mentorship is happening and at a sustainable scale, right? How do we start to then say, okay, so what are some of the support systems and the resources required for us to move this to the next level?
Lisbeth, tell us a little bit about some of the challenges, and and the things that we talked about earlier is the challenges faced within the technology sector are not specific to Kenya, not specific to Africa. It's a global, in terms of overcoming some of these challenges. It's a global issue, but there are very Africa-specific challenges, of course. When you start thinking about power shortages, when you start thinking about internet connectivity, when you start thinking about understanding and teaching, right, and the skills acquired. Tell us a little bit about your own experience from a global scale and bringing it really down to Kenya and down to the mashinani.
So I think, you mentioned two things. Like what have I overcome to get in tech? And I think it's a very similar story to what was just said. As from when you're young, if you're a girl, you're not very encouraged to go into liking tech things. It's even discouraged, I would say, because often I liked maths, for example, and I liked physics. But when I was not understanding something, then very quickly I would get the response, "Oh, but that's okay. You're a girl anyway." And so you really have to overcome. I would say set standards. Don't let others tell you what level you should be. Just follow your own curiosity. And then really, because this is universal. So what I'm talking here is my experience. I grew up in Netherlands, but I've also lived in France and in Spain and in Switzerland. So it's pretty European too. But then taking it to Africa, everything that you mentioned, the power cuts, but also the solar energy. Those are really, I would say, the advantages here of why tech can be really part of what can be developed in the community. And women, since this is a women conference, we're the best ones placed actually to recognize all the issues that are out there and start finding solutions for ourselves. We don't need to wait until either some European company comes with some solutions to Africa, or for men to start developing things. No, you can actually, from your own curiosity, already figure out what's out there. And how can I improve things? And don't let yourself stop by other people saying, oh, there's already solutions for that, or that's not something you should care about. Follow your own passion.
Now, Casey, your story is a very interesting one, and you run away from the fact that you're not a techie, but technology has embraced you more than you've even tried to embrace it. So tell us a little bit about, your personal experience.
To begin with, my first introduction to technology was probably when I was in high school, and I went to the Alliance Girls High School, and in such a school, being a national school, we were encouraged to take the maths and the sciences and chemistry. And the reason people took computers was mostly because at that time computers was coming into the market and it was something different. And they took it not because they were interested in technology, but just because it was something different from sitting in a boring geography class or something. But when I had my accident, I was forced into embracing technology, because at a point you're told now you can't use your hands, but there's a way that you can use voice recognition software to do everything on the computer. At that point, I didn't really embrace the impact of what voice recognition software can do, because you wonder what can you do on a computer without your hands. And so I had to learn how to use the software and how to create programs, how to do basically everything from typing out documents, proposals, and through the years you get to learn the benefits of it, not only to persons with disabilities, but even to different able-bodied people. The speed with voice-activated software, you type 3 times faster than you can type even with your hands. And it's been able to enable me to create different programs, different presentations, and lots more.
You can participate, ask questions, of course, and comment on some of these issues as we go. Rather than waiting till the end to have a Q&A, I think it's important that we interact from the beginning. And then, of course, talking about the sort of innovations and room in technology, specifically here in Kenya.
There are all these hubs in Nairobi. I think Nairobi has at least 8 hubs. 15 now? Okay, there are 15 now. Maybe I'm focusing on the science ones. So when you get into that space, then you get an opportunity to find like-minded people, and then you can come up together with concepts, and then you can bid for it together, so that you're bringing the science bid, someone is bringing some other elements, maybe policy, and so on, and you come together, and then you are able to present this idea to a higher platform and get funding. I think the way the space has opened up, it's much, much easier now to execute your ideas. Unlike in the past, when you could have an idea, you're lying down in your bed, and then you just dive with your idea. Now it's much, much easier to get a channel through which to test your idea, so that you can get funding and be taken to the next level, and even collaborate with other like-minded people.
I think like-minded people is actually part of the key here. And one of the things, often technology is also misunderstood to be coding. So most of the hubs out there, at least 5 or 6, are really focused on web apps and coding development. But technology and innovation is actually much broader. It's anything from energy to sanitation to. So that's also where people need to find each other. And I think we do through forums like this, and we already started talking that, hey, we have some ideas. So it's really coming through and seeing like, hey, there's somebody who thinks about things the same way, which is maybe a little bit different than what's a lot in the media as well around technology, because again, that's very much centered on only ITC. But when we're talking technology, we're really looking at the broader picture. So that's also important to recognize.
So I also agree with like-minded people and specifically focusing on people that will understand that technology is also not about just coding. For example, with Chariots of Destiny, one of the programs we launched is a program called Tech-Abled. And Tech-Abled is disabled but tech-abled, empowering persons with disabilities through technology. And we partnered with HP East Africa, a computer company, and they donated laptops to the organization, which we were able to donate to quadriplegics and paraplegics. And right now, voice-activated software is still not available in the country. So with part of the work I've done, partnered with Nuance in the US, and they donated the voice-activated programs to Chariots of Destiny. And we teach quadriplegics how to use voice-activated software. One of the persons I donated one to was a girl who'd been injured since 2000, and I was donating this laptop and voice-activated in 2011. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what have you been doing since 2000? Because I learned about voice-activated software just a few months after my injury. That was in 2004. And she said, I just sit and I watch TV. But with voice-activated software, now she was able to begin classes, to take online courses.
For the good suggestions and contributions from the panelists. From where I sit, technology is very expensive from the woman in mashinani. And when you talk about it, they switch off because it's very expensive. Accessing it, using it, it's very expensive. Unless where we have organizations, development partners getting, playing a role in terms of helping the women in mashinani to be able to access that. Now, that's my first question. How do you make technology cheaper and accessible to the woman in mashinani? That woman who goes to collect firewood and spends 6 hours going to look for firewood in the forest, spends another 6 hours going to look for water. And when she comes back, she has no time for herself. She has no time to watch news. She has no time literally for herself. And she has to take care of her children and her husband. So how do you make technology work for women at mashinani? Ensure that the unpaid care work that women have to do is reduced and redistributed through technology.
Let me just comment about that because by technology, I believe you mean ICT type of technology, an email or web, isn't it?
Basically everything, including lighting.
Yes, because at STEM Africa, we believe that what somebody needs is technology that's appropriate for their need. If what you're lacking is firewood, then maybe you can come together as a group and start making briquettes. If what you're lacking is energy to light up, then maybe you should come together and get some solar solution. So this is exactly what we're advocating. We are saying, stop walking for 10 kilometers to fetch water. Come up with an innovative solution for water and sanitation. Find a way of recycling your rubbish to put on your farm. And if you look at it from that perspective, then if you're an innovator, then there are very many options on how you can optimize whatever you just have around you to make your life better using technology. If you're talking about access to the internet and any other so-called sophisticated technology, then that's a different discussion. It may not be appropriate for that person. But having said that, I think there are some applications like Mama Mboga that have been developed in this country by NILAB that help women come together to buy their mboga in bulk so that they can get better discounts. There are things like, I think, either eKitabo or I think eLimo will be talking later. Softwares that, apps, mobile apps that help you study and get to do a bit of learning just from your mobile phone. So here we are talking about technology that's appropriate to your situation and with you using simple raw materials that are immediately available to you to make your life simpler. That's what we are advocating for. That's the innovation itself.
Well, maybe not so much from a technology perspective, but I think also it's exposure, right? In seeing the different types of cook stoves out there that can be an alternative, seeing the different types of solar lighting out there that can be an alternative. And I agree there's big steps to make. I can't give any more on that, but I think that's also a business distribution in really showcasing and because if you don't know about things, you don't know what you can actually aspire to. So it's that exposure that
I Yes, I also agree with what they've said in terms of getting technology that's best suited for the person that you'd like to be supporting. If it's persons with disabilities, there's so many applications, including free apps, free e-learning books, which they can focus on. But I think it's important to get that information to them. So a free way would be going to the villages, speak to people, let them know about these applications, which they can download for free. Hundreds and thousands of ebooks which can be downloaded for free would be beneficial for them. So I think it's just getting the information to them.
Just to contribute to what you've said about the woman in Mashinani, majority of the people here actually work as development partners, like civil society organizations. And we have seen situations where a woman cannot walk to the nearest health facility because she doesn't know what kind of services she can get from there, including family planning, including delivering in that health facility. The facilities are there, yes, but she doesn't know how it's going to benefit her if she walks to that health facility. So there's a technology that Christian Aid has embraced called mHealth technology, where we have reminders of where we have bought women handsets so that they can be reminded from the health center that they need to go for their A&C clinics and they need to walk to that facility early to go and deliver there before they deliver at home and die or get complications. So as techies and technology experts, how would you work with that in mind to ensure that the women in this country or in Africa are aware that these softwares are available, these technologies are available, so that they can be able to access them and use them?
Okay. There's a lady doing the same kind of thing you're describing. For her, it's about violence. They have a center for women who have had domestic violence to report. And they have developed the system, the apps, the tool, but they don't have enough women coming in. So that's her biggest challenge. But getting word out to people that this thing is happening, this tool exists, use it. You have to be really, really innovative about that. One of my solutions would be try and hang out where these people go to, where your target audience go to. It's like a stand because washrooms and central positions, and send this message out to the women, and also women groups where they need either monthly or weekly to put together their money. Maybe my colleagues have.
I was actually going to give a.
I think what I can say is, based on the fact that the idea is already there, there are already centers where this information is available, that's already a plus. So what we do with Charity of Destiny is we work a lot with interns from universities who want maybe have community-based attachments. My sister is in Strathmore, she's doing BBIT, so during their school break, they have to take up community-based attachments.
I mean, but I get her point, because the reality here is, it's about the everyday priorities, and the reality. So if a woman's reality is to ensure that her children make it to school, she gets her produce to the market, whose responsibility is it to ensure that this gap is bridged, especially when it comes to skill sharing, skill teaching at years old. I taught her how to text, right? Because she wanted to learn how to use her phone specifically for M-Pesa, right? How to retrieve and everything. And now that it's a personal thing, Even my parents, you remember in the early, when the phones came in, right? They would always say, check this phone. This thing is doing this, right? So whose responsibility is it to ensure that, the information is getting to the right person?
We're talking about these applications. But what we also need to understand is quite a couple of those applications have been developed just from a very inward view. And if the applications are so difficult that we need to train and teach, maybe we should change the applications as well. So I think we're very much at the forefront of the development of all these tools. The World Wide Web only started 20 years ago. And in Kenya, we're actually far ahead of the rest of the world in everything that we do with our mobile phones. We're doing things that actually in Europe they're thinking about piloting in the coming 5 years. So it's also a question of time, and developing the tools in a different, more user-friendly way. That it doesn't need to, you need to look for them or search for them or get training. So I think there's also a lot on the development side.
Yes.
I think I'll pass this
Okay.
after I've done that.
Okay.
I have two questions. One for Catherine. With STEM Africa, how soon do you start the activities to encourage women in science, tech, engineering, and math? Because when you have innovators having innovators competition, when venture capitalists are coming to invest in ideas, you find a lot of that, I think more than 90% is young men. We don't see women. What is STEM Africa doing, and what are the channels that can be done for that? And then the second question to the panel and to the floor, because we're thinking here together, is how can we, somebody mentioned that women, being the social people we are the first ones who are hit by social problems, sanitation, cooking challenges and all. What are we doing and what can we do to get solutions, whether tech or IT?
Okay, so for STEM Africa, what we are actually going back to primary school to help children do activities with their hands, hands-on. They learn science in class, they learn about evaporation or heat transfer, but they never touch it. They don't touch a magnet. I don't know if your kids are in schools that are touching these things, maybe very few schools. So we're going back all the way to primary, standard 4 to be exact, that's our starting point. So we are going to be doing experiments. Just now we're going to do some work with GE in March or April that will get kids to get to touch their stuff that is teaching about physical science, earth sciences, and biological sciences. That means you can do an experiment regarding a plant, or an experiment regarding a magnet for the earth science, or something around gears for your physical science. So the children start to conceptualize some of these things. And then we go to girls' schools, secondary, and we again help them to do an actual project with their hands, because this is mostly about getting your hands dirty. All of us have done the theory in school. If you're in for 4, you've done physics, you've done maths, chemistry. But the point of departure is when you start touching something with your hands, changing a light bulb, making a small circuit using just 2 batteries and a wire and a bulb, and then you demystify science and technology. We do science and technology every day in our kitchens, in our bathrooms. So just get these kids to learn more about this, demystified by doing a physical experiment, and then present a real life woman who's a drilling engineer or who's a chemical scientist or something. Then these girls will start learning that actually I can do it, and then we throw in the innovation aspect, whereby you're just modifying something that exists. And hopefully, we hope to start getting more and more of our girls participating in these challenges. To demystify it, one of the projects we have done has been around solar, briquette making, bricks making, and recycling of plastics. And the girls have really, really embraced it. And this was an all-girls team, and we always send word out. That's why I spoke about challenges when I started, because it's through challenges that girls can enter that space more easily. But like she says, 90% is normally men. So we have to work together to get more women into that space.
She asked something key, I think that we need to address, of course, future innovations, and specifically when it comes to, disaster preparedness and access specifically. Would you like to take that, please?
Yeah, I think there was another lady who directly wanted to respond to me. I can as well, or maybe take a couple of questions and then we can. Okay, absolutely.
Okay, my name is Patricia Tanya. I work for the Leaders Council of Kenya. When I came to this session, I was really looking at how do we step down technology to be useful to our mothers in the villages. The people who are now using technology, especially in Kenya and many countries in Africa, are the elites. I've been worked with NGOs for 24 years. My mother is still walking to the river. My mother is still cleaning up. And she is using a phone. How can I make this technology go down to her, supporting the elite to be more technically compliant? And if one answers that question for me, I'll be home and dry and my conference will end.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Monica Ivanjo. I work for the county government of Kiambu as the County Executive for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. Um, uh, I'm really enjoying this talk because it touches very much on my pet, uh, let me say, where I have worked more, especially with women, and also having come up to be a scientist, which probably was not what I originally had anticipated, thanks to Dr. Eda Gashukia, who came to a girls' school where we were not so much inclined to sciences, and she talked to us and changed my mind. So I became a scientist. When I think about the technologies, I find it's more of a mindset, the attitude that we have, especially thinking about the woman, the youth, and the girl, because right from high schools, we are kind of finding that mathematics, for example, is really a tough subject for girls, you see, and therefore they kind of incline themselves to the humanities and not getting into sciences. I think that's where we need to have an active role in mentorship so that we start right from high school and we start looking at sciences and the technologies in a positive attitude, and then we can push our agenda forward, because as much as we even talk of leadership, women and leadership, most of these leadership positions, we have also technologies and areas of technologies, and if we are not endowed in that area, it becomes quite obvious that most of us will not be picked. If there can be a way of getting a bias towards engaging the women in the technology, that can fast track the whole thing. Because right now, as we speak, most of them have mobile phones. Although when we started with the mobile phones in the early 2000 there, not many could even have. Why? Because they could not buy. But today, most of them have it. Most of them are on M-Pesa because that is the way to go. So I think it is us designing a way of fast tracking our village women to get engaged with technology.
So let's take 2 more points and then we'll go back, of course, to the original. We'll take one from this side and then one from that side as well.
My name is Teresa Reunge, and I'm representing a group of women and men who are in micro and small enterprises. Most of them, you'll understand, are in agriculture. And as my friend already mentioned, it's very important to promote them. But something bothers them a lot and punishes them a great deal. They grow their food, they spend a lot of time and energy and money. They harvest, people steal from them because they buy at a price which is actually below the production cost. How can technology help them in extending the period of storage so that they can be able to sell maybe 3 months or 6 months after harvest, then they can be able to make money. The other one is even knowledge in doing a little bit more than that. I've seen people growing a lot of onions, a lot of tomatoes, and most of it going to waste. If it cannot be bought as a fresh produce, then the rest is wasted. It's in the end technology that we can encourage so that they can be able to process that further and make it into a powder, make it into a paste, which they can also sell in the future or even in outlets in the market. The other one we have ignored a great deal is preservation of something like, shall I give an example of potatoes? You only need to buy a bag of potatoes for 600 today. 2 months down the line, it's 1,500. I think currently it's 2,000 and something. Who is gaining at the end of the day? Who is benefiting is the middleman. What can be done about that? Then about something else. Women are the ones who suffer most when there are problems of health. The children and themselves. When I was small, I don't want to say when I was small, we had books. If we are talking about how to look after yourself, how to keep your place clean, those books were withdrawn soon after independence. I don't want to know why, but they are not there. There are other ways of helping yourself without going to get antihistamine or cough syrup or something like that. Things that can help those people. Promoting primary, or is it called household primary or primary health care in the house? Because what you have is around you. And also knowledge on what is around you that is good for eating that you never ate before. We were growing vegetables to eat, but we are ignoring amaranth, which is a very important food. We are trying to go back to it. But when we were growing up, it was a wheat to us, and that was it. So this information is what helps them build the health at that level, prevent some of the diseases. I don't know whether this statistic is correct. 80% of the diseases are preventable. The rest are better managed with better food. How can we reach that goal?
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll hold the questions for now so that my panel can discuss some of the topics that have been raised, all right, and then we can move on to the second part of the interaction. Now, Junior Kat asked something very, very key in terms of future technology and how, of course, we're looking at being prepared for natural disasters, right? Looking at issues of national scale of security. How can we start to embrace that now?
Okay, I have one comment about disaster. Disaster, it's not that we don't have solutions. This is my personal opinion. We have solutions. We just haven't put it on the table. This is a discussion that is always on a backseat. It doesn't come to the fore. And therefore, what is most important is to put together this team that is going to put disaster onto the table. And then, in terms, if we could develop M-Pesa, then we can develop, whether it's software, whether it's any other early warning signals, we are able to do it as long as we are committed to coming up with a solution. What we lack is commitment, in my view, not the technology.
Maybe what I can say is one of the things I know about Dragon is there's a software called Dragon Medical, and what that does, it helps medical doctors and nurses at the site of surgery in an instant research on symptoms, causes, diagnosis of medical treatment, medical cases, and be able to get the information immediately. So just follow up on what Catherine said. Once we can get a team in place, the information and education about how to get instant information to dealing with such crises would be beneficial.
I mean, if you look at the way Kenyans almost behave when it comes to national issues, remember Kenya for Kenyans, right? Do you remember what conjured that campaign? It was the impoverished boy, the baby boy on the front page of the Standard. And what I've learned just from research from that time is Kenyans just need a channel and a platform. Tell them where the money will go. Tell them how it will be used. Tell them exactly who is part of the task force, and an amazing task force was formed actually for that, and they executed very, very quickly. So when it comes to that, the issue of commitment, and of course we're dealing with a number of issues right now in the country. Why is there no commitment? And I mean, please, anyone feel free to answer this. Is it issues of corruption? Is it over politicizing? Right? Is it key stakeholders who just don't come together? So we can say this for a long time that let's all come together and let's have a common goal and let's execute this in 2015. But the fact is, it hasn't happened. We keep talking about water harvesting. We keep talking about being ready, and then everyone always, when the big news, live event, the breaking news hits, we're all calling Red Cross. What's going on? What's happening?
As I think of the answers, let me just add. Last Friday, you saw the newspaper, and you saw how the governors have been using your money, and the percentages that have been spent, including Nairobi, which was at 10%. Yeah. And now we are saying for Kenya, it was a drought issue. And yet countries like Israel, where most of our, my dear sister here and her friends, county staff have gone so many times. So it's not about technology. Technology is the easy part. The hard part is the commitment. You saw the governor of Wajir? Was that number one? He's committed. That's why he's spending most of his money on development. Right, so if we can, I think let's solve the issues around commitment. the technology and the money will follow. Kenya's for Kenya was a private sector initiative. Disaster, as she describes it, is a national government or a county government initiative. That's what I can add.
Anyone would like to participate on that? Because it's a big conversation that we have year after year after year, and so many issues are not tackled. What do you guys think is the main issue?
Since I have the mic, I'll take advantage of this opportunity. With the very various questions that have come up with reference to have mobile phones, so it's about us taking advantage of that opportunity to share information with them. But first things first, they need to understand what their role is. They say the man is the head of the home, but the woman is the neck. So one cannot function without the other. So the man is steered by what direction the neck moves. So once the women understand their roles, then they're able to execute with reference to the same. So if I share with you information, if you understand your role, you're able to utilize this information for the benefit of the people around you. Then further is information sharing has to be very deliberate. That's a key problem that we have when it comes to knowledge management. Information sharing has to be very deliberate and very directed. Don't just share information randomly, but make it very specific to your target audience. Then finally, they need to understand how this information will help them. Then it makes it very easier for them to utilize it, and it has to be absolutely simplified. So what we did is we came up with a very simple it's a very simple system that sends messages. So what we do is I sit down and type a message about what the policies in the fisheries sector talks about, and I break it down into Swahili so that the student can understand. Then that way, after that, I'll pose a question to them. Do you think these policies have considered you as a woman in that specific area? And it's very simple. Respond to me and say yes or no.
Like the question on, sorry? The technology actually was used by the elite and not on the ground. But I would contradict that actually. I think, gadgets are used by the elite. But if you look at a lot of the innovations that are happening at the moment in technology, it's about cook stoves. It's about the solar energy. It is everything that's really on the ground. But then I would actually like to question like 70% of the people here sometimes maybe who work with NGOs and who distribute some of these technologies for free. So that actually a market where there's agents bringing those technologies to the markets can't establish itself. So I think it's again a business infrastructure distribution problem, which is behind technology not being brought to the different places.
Before we take the next question, based on your question on user-friendly technology, she said about getting them to understand the importance and the impact of technology. Because in my situation, I've dealt with people who are also quadriplegic, paraplegic, who refused the software because they thought it's just tiresome. What really can it change? It will make me walk again. It will make me use my hands. But when you go one-on-one and show them the impact of voice-activated software, I show them that you can be able to communicate. It gives you a sense of independence. When you become disabled, you become completely dependent. But with Dragon and voice-activated software, it's called Dragon, you're able to have your own independence. You're able to communicate to Skype, to chat, to email, to Facebook by yourself without having someone there to help you. So I think the first step is to get them to understand the impact of the technology, the impact of the voice recognition software. If I tell someone I use voice-activated software, off the cuff they think, but wow, does it help you? You still can do this. But once they see it and get to understand the magnitude, I think it's easier for people to be more acceptant and take individual responsibility, not just waiting and saying, no, I need it to help me and I want it to be easy, but first understand and say, I want to do it individually.
So if the math teachers could come together, they might find better ways of making the girls more comfortable with math. I'm not convinced that the math is always that hard because some schools perform so dismally that you have difficulty. What happens is that they started falling off maths very early before they even reached Form 2. So you have to go back all the way back and start lifting them up mathematically. by going back to the syllabus, even if it needs also at 8. So there's room for, in terms of policy, the math educators to come together to provide better solutions. For the other two ladies, I would like to throw a challenge back to you. The reason why STEM Africa is trying to work with young ladies to sensitize them on technology is because we want them to go out and innovate. I think you've been hearing about the Vice President's wife and the table banking. Women are coming together to develop the innovative solutions. So, where does innovation come from? It comes when you're hungry enough to take action. Get angry enough to say, we are looking for a better solution for our brains. We are looking for a better solution for our water system, and come together as women and develop a concept, whether it's getting a huge water tank and then collecting rainwater. I think you can come up with something, but working alone individually, no. And waiting for someone to bring the technology to you, again, that won't work. It's coming together and innovating. That's what we're advocating.
I think that we are a little bit dispersed. For example, this is a year for women's empowerment, 2015. What could we do differently that will take us out of our little organizational boxes to stop being projectized and start really saying, in Kenya, in Mozambique, in Malawi, we are going to reach 2 million women this year in terms of technologies that reduce drudgery, that reduce time, that increase productivity, and maybe these are the few technologies we're going to work on, and we will need the educators, we will need the mobile technology, we will need the distributors, we will need the manufacturers who can, mass produce and sell, the goods at an affordable price on the market. So I'm just challenging us that perhaps, in addition to the conversation we're having here, perhaps we could just have a mapping session or a strategic planning activity where we can come together as a group and start doing, phenomenal things together, because we are doing them separately and the impact is so much less. But imagine if that woman who is a farmer is getting, all of, a piece of all of this, imagine how impactful it could be, not just for her, but for her community. So for me, it's just a challenge to the panel. What do you think of that? Is it doable? Is it possible?
Last week when I went to a conference where two sets of secondary school children were showing their innovations around biogas, and using human waste. One was a school here in Kenya with 3 boys, and what they have done to actually generate from the waste that's coming from the school population, and you can imagine it's a lot, to generate gas for the school kitchen and the savings there. And then from a lady, a 15-year-old girl from Nigeria, similar, but the way in which she had done it was quite amazing to me, using banana peels and how they leave them in the sun for 2 weeks and so on, and using those scoring pads that we use in the kitchen to clean the pots and so on. My question though is, so there are lots of bits and pieces of innovation happening, probably as you're saying, Lisbeth, that's similar, going in a similar direction. How does that get scaled up so that it's not, a few projects here and there? Where does the government come in? What kind of enabling environment is it providing to ensure that these innovations are actually, spreading and not, just a few schools here and there in this particular case?
You must make opportunity of every person you meet, all those cards you meet, to say, how can this person help me? And what do they need from me as well? And you use these cards to network. I just live by connections and connecting people and tell them who does what. And it's very important. So as I'm thinking here, one of the transformational leadership is the fact that we're all here together. So I'm going to challenge Honorable Monica Weganjo, PhD, you spoke. Transformational leadership. You're the Minister for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. And our colleague here, your friend, has women who grow potatoes, tomatoes and whatnot. And you have IHUB,
Elizabeth there, who has probably investors and people who would love to come and invest in Kiambu, because one of your biggest things, Kiambu is amongst the top 5 leading counties. You have a lot of food. Maybe call a workshop and say you're looking for young entrepreneurs, people with ideas on how they can help agriculture. There are lots of people here you can connect for training, who their job is training, so they'll have to get money. You're a county government. And honestly, you can be able to come up with 1 or 2 ideas only on how you can actually be able to market yourself. Especially seasoned onion powder goes into chicken, pizzas, everything. So I thought, how does one make onion powder? And I Googled, making powder is not rocket science. And we have lots of onions here. There's white one, there's red one. And that is an industry that could be created very simply. You can dry the onions and then all this dehydration and whatever. It's a very simple process. So I'm thinking that, there's a lot we can do for agriculture which directly impact women. And can we use the lunchtime to get cards from each other? And because we're all in business for ourselves, it's a win-win. And I think one of the most powerful people here is Monica Waiganjo, because you're in county government, you can make such an impact just by connecting people and saying, it's not my area, can somebody else come talk about it? I bring the women, I bring the business, and create an conducive climate for the business people who make money off the project. So it's not a lot of hard work, but I've noticed, and somebody said that, it's really who gets the thing going, who takes the responsibility and say, I will lead this. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
In a way, I feel we are preaching to the people who already know these things. And you'd be surprised if you look at those county strategic plans. The kind of things they put in there, you'd find them almost 20 years ago. They were somewhere in some strategic plan. But we are talking ahead now. How can we transform some of these plans where they will put resources to be able to speak the language we are talking today? So for me is to see how we can ensure we have incubation centers for STEM, for Hub, even if it's 5 counties just to begin with, and then we let the rest follow. Thank you.
I can ensure that it's a mentorship. There's a trickle-down effect somewhere, and by every single individual. So if I've helped you, you must pay it forward type of system. Because even this conversation in terms of how it can go if we let it, it'll always go back to government. Serikali twaomba, right? But how do we start to then say, okay, we are the government as well? We have one more back there. One right here, next to Dr. Iganjo. Then we'll take the 2 questions and then we'll break.
I wanted to comment about the lack of commitment. I think lack of commitment has been cutting across in many areas, even in areas of infrastructure development. And what I've seen is, when I look at it, when I think about it, it's the attitude, the culture of casual approach to things, lack of ownership, to some extent even a don't care attitude. And what I would say about this is that it can only start with you and me. You make a decision, you decide, I'm going to change. I'm going to change. Even things which were not being done can be done. And I could give you maybe just a small example of what we are trying to do in Kiambu. We have managed to do quite a lot of road network, and we have a very high target. And I believe, I'm strongly convinced that it can be done. And people have been asking, if all these roads were done within 1 year, where did this money used to go? Why wasn't it done before? So the money was there, the people are there, but it's just deciding to do it or not to do it. So I want to challenge you ladies today that the change you want will start with you. I also wanted to comment on Cassie. Cassie, your story is touching. It's very inspiring. And I was wondering, as a Minister of Roads, Transport in Kiambu, I'm very concerned about preventing accidents. And I'm wondering whether you've thought or come across some technology which we can use to prevent these accidents, which are really bringing a lot of havoc to our people. Thank you.
Countries create these big and enormous highways, and people are still dying on the roads. So we advocate for putting measures that you're creating safe roads as well as creating good roads. And in terms of technology to enable road safety, I think one of the things I can mention is applications right now being used by young people. There's an app where people talk about road accidents, if there's an accident somewhere, if there's a jam somewhere. But the problem is it's misused. If you go on Facebook, there's also technology and apps where people warn others about where police are for the breathalyzers and they say, don't pass that. So it's at the end of the day, it's individual responsibility. I think that was one of, for lack of a better word, stupid applications that was put on Facebook, and you find people joining. When you don't realize that you could be a safe driver, but someone else's careless mistakes can cause your accident. So when people go and help people, don't use that road because they're police. You're not using that road because you're probably drunk. So it starts with individual responsibility and taking advantage of resourceful and useful applications.
That they wake up, go to the shamba, go back home, go to school. You know, it's the same routine over and over again. They don't embrace anything. They still use firewood since I was born. They still go to the river. They still do the same things over and over again. And they can't. Every time you introduce an idea, you tell them, you know, you can do this, and they're like, no, we are comfortable. You know, how do you deal with such resistance?
I think it starts with not trying to convince everybody, but trying to find those 1 or 2 out of 10 that actually get what you're saying. And when you've got them over, then there will be the followers that actually will follow. And there will be always 2 or 3 that will never get it. So actually really focus on those few that do get it, and with them you get the masses, and forget about the people who will never change. That's the biggest advice I would give.
For the past 3 years I've been doing social media business, and I've been connecting people, I've been connecting projects, and the good thing about the whole thing is my company is the social media partner for this Afro Media. So what am I trying to drive at? We can reach out to any person in any place of the continent. I normally hold a weekly chat known as NAYD chat every Wednesday, and it's more of sharing experiences from people from different countries in the continent. I don't have the resources to do that. I don't have the resources to move, but I'm able to learn from different countries, and that's where collaboration comes in.
Now, this is, as I'm taking notes and listening to everyone, one of the things that I can certainly say that is common here is food security. Food security is big, right? And especially when it comes to the people who actually matter, the farmer on the ground. So in coming up with solutions for that, how can we start to map out solutions collectively, right? Is something I can definitely say has come from this discussion. One thing is also participation, knowledge sharing and skill training. So that's something else that has also come out. How do we start to do that? How do we start to network together to ensure that the information that we've spoken about here, right? You will share it with somebody who specifically needs it, and that somebody, you will ensure that they share it and keep paying it forward. And of course, scaling up, ensuring that you're constantly scaling up, and in saying that and in scaling up in whatever innovation and in whatever sector, right, that you are ensuring that there's full participation from the inception. So those are I think the key issues that have come, and of course mentorship is big. So of course, to conclude, I'll just let the panel give us their last remarks based on, of course, a lot of the questions, because it keeps coming up, you know. How do we start to ensure that we're working collectively, right? That there is participation, right? That there is commitment to the people who actually matter,
right? Government, private sector, and of course innovators like yourself. Catherine, I'll just let you go.
Okay, let me start by saying, let us appreciate tech beyond tech. A lot of us in this country are now thinking tech must have a mobile apps, must have a web platform to it. So think outside that space as well. I mean, that space is really exploited and you've really done well in Kenya. But also think in terms of your energy solution, your water and sanitation solution, your agriculture. How can you irrigate better? How can you enhance your manure using readily available materials? How can you, so we're talking about energy, we're talking about food security, we're talking about water and sanitation, and that type of technology and how you can do it better. Even as you write on the mobile apps like mFarm, but you also look at the technology itself and not the application in terms of ICT. Secondly, I would like to say in innovation, you have to have diversity. Right now, if you submit an idea, let's say to NILA or the Hub or the most famous IHAB, most of them will require that you be at least 3. So if you're trying to innovate alone in your corner, you're not going to have the best results. The best results are generated by what you do when you want more fire. You put one stick against another, right? And then you light up a bigger fire. So please collaborate with your neighbors, bring your ideas together, bounce your ideas off somebody else. That way you're going to be a better innovator. And then innovation cannot happen without diversity. So diversity is really key to the innovation. So at a personal level with your own idea, come up with 2 other people. And even as a group, like for us at STEM Africa, we need to join with others to have better innovation. Thank you.
And I think actually the people here, they've started already giving some of the solutions, including having a look at actually what's happening across the full value chain with the onion powder, for example. I mean, also that is all innovations, eh? And the rest actually you've already talked about. The only one thing is though about the hub, just yeah, we're not a competition-based hub, so we're actually open for knowledge from any sector. So just want to add that.
Just to conclude, maybe what I can say is, no matter the ideas we discuss here, there'll always be challenges. Some of the challenges I faced were 3. I was young when I started Chariots of Destiny. I was only 25. I was a lady and I was disabled, but I chose to look at the bigger picture and focus on exactly what you want to achieve at the end. If it's to enable people in the rural areas to benefit their lives and to improve their lives, it's to focus on the bigger picture and know that at the end of the day, that is what you want to achieve despite your challenges. And as a developing country, long ago developing as compared to developed countries, most people thought it means we are poor, but actually it means that we have platforms to grow, we have platforms to research, as she said, research the onion powder story. There's a lot out there, we just have to find it. So
okay, but before we conclude, I'll be remiss if I didn't tell you about an amazing board game that Casey came up with, the 50-50 game. Tell us a little bit about that and where you're taking it. Didn't you take it to State House? Yes, you did. Go on.
So just a brief about 50-50. What happened is, in 2011, Chariots of Destiny, how we raised funds for our organization is through donor funding as in the partnership with HP. And when the year began, 2030, yes, we thought we wanted to come a way to become self-sustainable. So we said, let's come up with a project where we can raise money to go back into the organization, and we wanted to be unique. So one day over a game of Monopoly, we thought, why are we always playing Western board games? Why not come up with our own Kenyan board game? So we came up with 50-50. That was the year Kenya was celebrating 50 years of independence, and it's 50 years of Kenya's history in 50 seconds. So through the voice-activated software, I got to research words from the 1960s, from musicians to corporate companies, basically to keep our country's history alive. Kids born today will never know who Wangari Maathai was or who George Saitoti was. They contributed. It's fun to remember TV programs, TV presenters from the 80s, 90s, and also as a way for families to come together. We've had old people say they've never had time to sit with their teenagers and just get to bond and relate. So that's one of the best things about 50-50. And yes, we're looking to partner with different corporate companies, have it as a corporate gift to clients, because it's not only for one person, it helps the whole family, it helps and enable to enrich our country's history, put it in curio stores. When you want to remember something about Kenya, you buy a t-shirt with Kenya. Why not buy everything Kenyan in a box? It's over 2,500 Kenyan words, and part of the proceeds go back to charity destiny.
Thank you very much. Everybody, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. Of course, this conversation goes on tomorrow, right, where we seek to solidify some of the solutions that came up today and to seek to demystify what the main issues and challenges are, and especially when it comes to technology and how it can continue to make the lives of millions and millions of Kenyans a lot easier. There's some people visiting here from different foreign lands, right, from England, right, where it's freezing. She's very happy with the sun, all right, and of course from Mozambique as well, right. So please share your cards, share your networks. It is so important that we keep this conversation going. And very quickly, I would like to say this: I will give a platform on AN Live NTV to anyone who has a solution for Kenyans in whichever sector. It is so important that this conversation continues and it reaches a lot more people. So from Dr. Waiganjo to my dear lady of roads in Kiambu, please always use this opportunity to talk to me, to come on the show, to spread a lot of this great gospel and wonderful experiences, and continue this conversation. Thank you so much.